Hey guys, how's it going? Today we're going to be working on a few projects here in the greenhouse and also in the studio, just small things. Basically watering, a little bit of repotting, and some project cleanup. And it's raining. I don't know if you can hear that. It's gorgeous. It sounds beautiful. It's also snowy outside, so we got about 6 inches of snow a little over a week ago. We got about 4 inches of new snow night before last, and then last night we got 2 new inches of snow and now rain. And tomorrow it's supposed to rain all day, and then we have 2 days after that are supposed to be sunny and like close to 40 degrees. So I think the roads will be lovely, and I know all the plants are benefiting from it big time, so it doesn't bother me at all. I'm just so thankful we have a space here to do some things. First thing we're gonna do is pot up these pomegranates that I picked up when my mom, sister, and I went on our last shopping trip. Found these in Boise, and I was just so excited to get a hold of them. I don't know a whole lot about pomegranates. Nothing really from experience, only from what I've read. I've wanted to get my hands on this variety for last couple of years, and so when I saw them, I leapt at the opportunity because they're such cute plants. They are a zone 7 through 10 though, so we are a zone 6. They have to winter over here in the greenhouse, and it says, I did some reading on this specific variety, and it says, you know, if you have them in containers, because this variety is good for containers, it stays a lot smaller than traditional varieties. You can have them out during the summer and then bring them in and continue to kind of enjoy the show that they provide. They bloom bright, kind of bright orange dangling blooms in the summertime, and then they have little pomegranates on them, which they are technically edible, but this variety in particular they're not huge, and the seeds, I guess, are just on the sour side. But the fruit lasts for a really long time on the plant and look really pretty. Also, Russell. So look at these plants. Well, maybe, how about you back up just a little bit, Russell? They're little itty bitty right now. They grow 3 to 4 feet tall and wide, and they stay smaller if you keep them in a container. Okay, dude, I can't, you're distracting me. But look at these little fruit. They are so cute. And you can see on the tag what the color of the fruit, or the flowers rather, look like in the summertime. These do have hard water damage on them, which, you know, that's okay. They'll grow out of that. And then you can see on this one is already split. So this one we could remove from the plant. In fact, let's take a look here. Kind of interested. Sour, they say. Let's try it. Oh, yep. Ugh. No. If you like sour things, you might like this fruit. I've never been huge on sour, so I'm just in it to get some experience with this type of plant to see how they do for us in here. So I'm going to pick out a couple of pots, get some soil, and get those done here first. On my way, though, I'm going to take some supplies back to the barn. This is from our hyacinth project. I have some moss in a basket out and so on and so forth. So let's get that done. See how much I can fit in the crate. 1 box. And I would love to use these pots, but I can't get them apart. There's 2 terracotta pots that are just fused together. I'm afraid I'm gonna have to break one of them. Sacrifice one. All right, well, take those back. I think we've got everything we're gonna need. I got the Biotone starter fertilizer, which we are gonna mix in with the organic potting mix. I've got a couple of different sizes, or 3 different sizes of terracotta here. I'm hoping that when I get the root system out, I mean, this is such a tiny little plant for how big of a container it's in. We might be able to fluff some of the soil off and get one to fit in this container here. I'm not sure. They may end up both in these right here, and I've got my cup of coffee. While we were gathering, it did start to rain a little bit harder outside. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's beautiful outside today. it's not quite as cold as it has been. So I understand with these pomegranates that they are quite drought tolerant once they're established, but you do want to, when you put them in containers, they act differently than they do in the ground. So you want to err on keeping their roots slightly damp, but not ever wet or bogged down with water, which is kind of everything, most everything that we're putting in containers, especially when we're not bumping them up into much larger containers, which I'm not sure if you want to do that with these. You don't typically want to bump plants up too much in pot size, but the tops are just so small on these, it would look awkward if I put them in larger pots anyway. So they do like free draining soil, and they like it to be rich in organic matter. So I think we'll be good with the organic potting mix and the starter fertilizer. So I just think we need to get into these, see what the root systems look like, and get them potted up. Okay, let's see how these look. Not heavily rooted at all. Oh, look at all this. No roots in that soil. All right, look at that. That'll be easy to repot. We'll spread all of this used soil out in the garden. I would reuse it for this pomegranate if I knew how old it was, but I don't know how long it's been in the container, and I'd like to start with fresh stuff today. Potted, watered in. I ended up planting some coral carpet sedum in the third pot I brought out here, and I watered everything else while I was at it. There's not a whole lot in here, mostly just things left over from fall containers that I didn't end up using. So we've been slowly feeding the chickens the cabbage over there. We'll go give them one today. In fact, I think these 4 are clean, but these 4 I think have slight aphid problems. Let's look. Yeah, I don't know if you can see that. If you get right in on the center there, we've got some aphid activity going on. So the chickens will enjoy that. And one of my projects for this winter is to really do up this area. Just haven't had time to do it yet, but I want to pot up all the Rudbeckia, get some more tropicals in here. I'm thankful I didn't do it sooner though, because of the whole, the one night that the door was left open. In fact, the pomegranates made it through that night. So being a zone 7, that means they're hardy down to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So it didn't get that cold in here. It was I think it was in the 20s the night that the door was open. And that's what took most of the tomato plants that were out here. And the fig, you can see the fig, I think right back there. That's the one from in the house. Moved it out here because we put the Christmas tree right where the fig usually sits. That poor thing. I mean, all the leaves are just, so I'm hoping the branches are still pliable. It might push new growth, but so I'm thankful I didn't introduce a bunch of new tropical heat-loving plants in here before that happened. Now we're keeping a much closer eye on doors and things like that so that doesn't happen again. But anyway, that is in the works. Maybe that'll be a good and fun January project. But I'm thrilled with these. So the smaller of the two did have a smaller root system. I was able to knock most of the soil off, which I ended up using in here. It's kind of perfect. I did have some extra fresh soil left, but I added the starter fertilizer in there. Sedum does not like fertilizer, so I just used some of the old soil from the pomegranates. That was just perfect. And I'm going to keep this pot in here because I'm going to use that soil to pot up more of the coral carpets. I got a few more right there that need some attention. They're beautiful. And then I do keep these. These are the sedum pots because I use these to pot up seedlings in the spring. So in the barn I have a little stash that I keep adding to. Anyway, I don't think that there's any other information on the pomegranates that I haven't shared yet. Again, this is kind of an experiment for me. First time ever having a pomegranate in my possession, so it'll be fun to see what happens. If you guys have experience with them in containers, I would love to know your thoughts on the whole thing. I think we're done out here. I had planned on potting up the Rudbeckias today, but since I discovered we're lacking the pots and the sizes that I kind of need for out here, we'll do that a different day. We have plenty to do in the studio. I've got 2 Amaryllis and some paper whites to pot up, and then I've got to pay some attention to those plants in there. They are dry. It's been a couple of weeks since I've watered in there, and yeah, they need to be groomed, watered, and I'm going to condense them a little bit so that they'll fit under fewer grow lights. It shouldn't take us too long in there. Need this. Oh, I'm going to need this too. So we have a hose that connects to the hose link right there, you see at the door. And if we follow it out, it goes over there to the frost free by the barn. So that's our water access out here in the winter time. So what I'll do is I'll pick up the hose link here and I'll just carry it over to that black, see that black thing on the side of the barn right there? That's the holder for the hose link over there. So it'll get it closer to the studio, and then we can use that, and then when we're done, we'll pop it back in the greenhouse so it doesn't freeze. It stopped raining, so that's kind of nice. Quick look at the studio before we start in on our project. It's pretty clean in here right now, which is so nice. I mean, this is where we do a lot of our indoor filming. So of course there's a lot of gear, a lot of Aaron's supplies right there, but otherwise we have grow lights everywhere in here. There's the garage door, which I love to have open on more mild days, let in all the light in the air. We've got 2 of the medium bamboo LED grow light gardens here, stacked one on top of the other. There's a mini right there, like a countertop style one we can bring inside and do some herbs or something like that, which would be fun. We've got a cat who wants in, Russell. Oh, this is really cool too. I'm not sure the name of this, but Gardener Supply sent this out. It's like a drying rack for herbs or whatever, flowers. I think it's got a really neat look to it. And some baskets I picked up on major clearance. Anyway, I don't know where I was at, except for we've got the 2 mediums. There's a mini for a countertop. That's a dehumidifier, which we usually have to run in here during the winter time because condensation forms on the windows and it's super muggy, but we haven't had to do that yet. We have 3 of the 3-tier sunlight I'm not sure the name of those either. 3-tier sunlight gardens, I think. I've had these for quite a long time. Like, these lived inside in our plant room before we had the studio, and they're just so like compact. They keep everything nice and tidy. My seed trays fit perfectly on here. I can fit 5 across each one of these, which is great. But these need some major attention and water and condensing, because I do have other grow lights. Let me show you right over here. Try to walk kind of slowish. I've got some of the Oslo grow light gardens over here, the white ones, which are super handy, but there's no reason why I can't fit these plants over in the other side, so I don't have to drag the hose over here. I do have some hanging grow lights, like ballasts and extra light bulbs, and then some of my supplies over here. So we've got, fertilizers, we've got some soils, we've got some containers. This is where I usually have all my seeds. Those are in the Hartley right now because I just finished organizing them. I need to bring them back out here. And then you can see some other random supplies and such. I've got a yoga mat out here, just in case. But most of these stands get filled up with seed trays in the late winter, early spring. It gets super exciting in here. Then I've got this really kind of fun vignette. Aaron got me this table for Christmas last year or the year before. Can't remember, but I really like it. And I've got some plants on it, a little picture there. Those are actually grow lights. That's also from Gardener Supply. It's one of those types of lights that you can form it to where there's 3 pointing different directions. You can make it look a little more aesthetically pleasing than I have it. I have all 3 lights pointed at my fern here. Fern's loving its life. It's doing really well. And then standing against the back wall, you can kind of see what's going on here. These big fabric panels are to absorb sound for our audio. It helps a little bit. And we used to have a rug right here, but we found that the rug was just a magnet for dirt. I mean, you can imagine with the kind of things we're doing in here. That did help with sound too, but we would rather have a more tidy floor in here. I think what we'll do first is tackle our Amaryllis and Paperwhite project. So let me get these up here. These are gifts, you guys. So I've got 8 of the Earlicheer Paperwhites right here, and I need to find a container for those. And then I've got 2 pots and 2 Amaryllis right here. Look at that bulb. Look at how beautiful that is. That is just a beast. And this is the traditional red lion. I think maybe both of these are. That one does not have a tag, but I remember getting these out of the same bin. So I think we're dealing with 2 red lions here. I'm using the organic potting mix for both of these projects, and they're really easy to pot. I've showed you how to do this before. But the daffodils, these are narcissus or daffodils. The early cheer, it's funny because I planted 100 of these outside, not realizing they are a zone 9 through 11. They came up beautifully though. I planted them in the fall one year. They came up gorgeous the next spring. They are very pungent, very fragrant. So you do need to make sure, like, you know, if you're giving this as a gift, like I'm giving these as a gift, you want to make sure that the recipient either has a place sort of like in a sun porch, or some people love the smell of them. So I just make sure that whoever I'm gifting them to likes that, because it can be an overwhelming fragrance. Anyway, they're gorgeous. They're clumps of blooms, and they're kind of like a creamy white peach color. They're so pretty. And you can plant these instead of like in the ground. You usually plant daffodils like 5-6 inches deep. In a container like this, you can plant them to where like even the neck of the bulb is kind of popping up out of the soil. And then with our Amaryllis, well, I'll talk about that in a second. Let's get these done. Okay. So see that layer of soil in there? I left just a few inches from the top. And whoops, I'm gonna go through and make sure all these bulbs are good. Some of them you can see the growth point. I don't know if you guys can see like that little greenish white growth point. This one's got a much taller one. But if they don't show that, that doesn't mean they're not going to bloom or, you know, produce growth. This one feels like I can see the bulb, but it looks kind of white. It's firm, but a tiny bit springy. You want to make sure that they're not like rock hard and all shriveled up. That means they're dried out and probably won't grow. And you want to make sure that they're not mushy. 2 things to look out for. So let's just get these arranged here. And you can plant these really close together if you want to. I'm giving them a little bit more space in this arrangement. That looks perfect. They've got room to breathe. I think that'll be a really pretty display. If you have a smaller pot, you can plant them like shoulder to shoulder if you want, like that. I mean, all of these could be clustered together. It will not inhibit their ability to bloom. It's not a super long-term solution, but a really pretty display for sure. So now we're gonna take some soil and fill it up to where there's still a little bit of a lip, so watering is easy, and I'm going to also top dress with a little moss. And I always break the moss up in pieces to where the stem and the leaves don't have any problem popping through it, but it does dress it up and make them look nice. So this is preserved sheet moss, and you see how it comes in chunks like that, which is really handy in a lot of cases. But in something like this, I kind of tear it into smaller pieces and still lay it side by side like it's a sheet. But I want the stem and stuff to not have any problems growing up through it. And that kind of helps. I have these little copper tags that I like to write the plant names on. It kind of, I don't know, makes it look a little prettier than a white plastic tag, and that way we know what's in here. So that one is done. So now we're gonna tackle the Amaryllis, which this is super, super duper easy. You don't wanna pick a container too much larger than the diameter of the Amaryllis. They want to be cozy, almost pot bound. This one you can see there's about 1 inch on every side of the bulb, and that's fine. You could go even a little bit smaller than that. You could also use those vases that you just put water and rocks in the bottom of. Those are really cool, fun to watch them grow. Not as much of a long-term solution. Again, you would need to take them out of that eventually and pot them up in some soil if you're wanting to treat them as a perennial and try to get them to bloom the next year. But you can see I leave the bulb and the neck of the Amaryllis well out of the container. We don't want any soil and water going down into the neck of the bulb. That can cause issues. And then I'm just tamping in around the bulb to make sure there's no air pockets down in there. Oh, that's perfect. We leave a lip so it's easy to water, and I shouldn't have put my moss away because I'm going to top dress with that. Amaryllis number 2. This one's going to be a more snug fit. This is a much bigger bulb. Oh, it's perfect. Yeah, if you kind of tap the side of your pot and give it a shake, it helps settle a lot of that soil down in around those roots. We want Amaryllis to be firmly planted in their container, because once they start to put on growth and they start to bloom like way up here, they'll get much more top heavy. So, you know, providing some kind of a stake is kind of nice too. And I'm gonna probably grab some branches out later like I did with mine that are inside the house. Branches are a really pretty alternative to a traditional plant stake. All done. Gotta clean my mess up. Minus the supports I'll add for the Amaryllis, these are all done. So this container actually has a plug in the drain hole. So this one you'd have to water very, very sparingly. And if you were gonna, pot something in this outside, you'd probably want to take the plug out and add a saucer. But it's kind of nice at this point just to kind of have it all contained, especially if it's going to be inside. And then for these containers right here, I have some of the glazed terracotta saucers. These are so awesome, you guys. I know I've talked about them a lot, but this is the only way I buy terracotta saucers now. Or you can create your own. We have done a video using a bunch of different products to do this, because terracotta is porous. And if you put a saucer on a surface, if it's not glazed, that water's still gonna make its way through the saucer and it can ruin your surface, but not with these. Super, super nice. They're usually a couple dollars extra, a couple dollars more than your unglazed terracotta saucers, but worth the extra money for sure. So really happy that these are done. Now we're going to tackle all of these plant shelves. I think what I want to do is get them watered, groomed, and kind of placed, and I'll show you the process, and then we'll go through and do a tour in the end. That way you can see the plants hopefully looking a little better than they look right now. They don't look too bad from backed up, but don't look close. Here we go. Got it done in here, you guys. I was able to turn off 6 sets of grow lights, which I think is amazing. And these are all LEDs, so they're all energy efficient and all that business, but it's good to use your space as best you can, I think, and it will mean less organizing and cleanup later when I get ready to start seeds. You might have noticed too, I also swapped from using the hose, which I normally do, to the watering can, which I normally don't use, because I have to go in and out to fill the can up, and my can is very small, but it's very easy to direct water to the plant cans when you don't have a whole bunch of weight behind it. The only reason I stopped using the hose is that it started to leak out of a spot where I would need to go get a pair of pliers to get it apart. So I was just kind of like, you know what? I've got a watering can right here, so I'm just gonna use that. So now let's just take a look through the plants. And a lot of them are still kind of rough looking, but at least they've been watered, they've been groomed to the best of my ability, and the ones that look kind of sad will probably perk up here pretty quick. On this side of the room, no grow lights being utilized. So I was able to eliminate the need to bring the hose over to this corner. Of course, I left all the plants that are right here, just right where they're at. And look at these. I was able to turn off all of the bottom lights. And while you could spread all your plants out, absolutely, it's a little harder. I mean, just like when you have plants too high, it's hard to water them. It's harder to water them when they're down low. This right here is comfortable to water all of these plants. And I feel like they all have space. They all have plenty of space. If I feel like anything's starting to get a little bit bigger, you can always spread them back out. Okay, so let's just go shelf by shelf here, and I won't know the names of a lot of these. just because I've been kind of out of the houseplant game for a long time in terms of like seriously learning the names of each individual one. When I was down at the garden center and I was ordering them and taking care of them, I had them much more locked down, but been kind of out of the game for a while. But there's a lot of pretty ones, and some that came from our last house, like this one right here, the agave. It's been in that pot this whole time too. And these aloes, there's 4 of them in here. I had like, oh, so many from one great big clump. I separated them, potted them. There are 3 in the Hartley, 4 here, and numerous of them went into other projects. We've got some really nice haworthias in here. Look at that. Isn't that a beauty? It's so pretty. There's some random cacti, you know, and I just keep these things around because it's nice to have some things to use in projects. And while that pot's not full, I might just pull one of those cacti out to use in a mixed arrangement. We've got, this is called a Ming thing, serious Ming thing. Interesting. I didn't find any bugs, you guys, by the way. No bugs. That was amazing. So awesome. This is a string of turtles. This is really cool. This is actually the first one I've ever had, and it's doing great. It's putting on a tremendous amount of growth. We've got some blue chalk fingers, the Senecio. Here's a night silence aloe right here that I need to separate. This one is a Pothos, Snow Queen. Ooh, this one was wilted. It's perking already. It's looking a lot better. All right, shelf right below, we've got some spider plants. We've got the African violets were probably one of the more sad looking plants of all of them, but I gave them a good watering and grooming and they should be all right. We've got a begonia back in there. I cut back a couple of them, but there's some fresh growth coming back. We've got some cacti, some really neat texture right there. This is a really cool aloe. Is this one like Christmas Carol or something? I can't remember the name, but it's really cool coloring. There's a Hoya. Isn't that cool? The variegated Hoya. More succulents of various varieties. This is cool. Now, do I still have a tag? No, of course I don't. Isn't that awesome? And I really like this Senecio back in here too. Love that color. All right, next shelf here. We've got some, is that watch chain crassula? I planted 4 in there and then they all kind of flop from the center. I need to find one that's more upright and put it right down there in the middle. More violets, which, you know, they just got through blooming, all of them. Oh, I missed one of the old blooms. This one is a really pretty white one, you can see that. But they were just so poorly, just neglected, poor plants. But these thrive on neglect. Look at this. These are the thimble cactus, and look at the sweet blooms on those. Oh, so fun. We've got some golden sedum here. There's a mini monstera right here. I need to get a pole for it to climb and repot it. So I really do have a list of things that I need to go down to the garden center for. I've got a few plants that I need to get a pole for. There's another one right there. We've got a Swiss cheese plant that's going like crazy. Really pretty Rex begonia that I had inside and cut completely back, and it's starting to flush out new leaves. And then up top we have a neon philodendron, and that one's doing really well. Nice bright pop of color. Look at this African violet. Oh my gosh. Oh, for crying out loud. I missed some spent blooms. Look at the beautiful color and the fluffy bloom. Oh, it's gorgeous. We have a goldfish plant right back there. More cacti, haworthias. There's a Birkin philodendron right here. Beautiful variegation and color. There's a string of hearts right here. Man, the string of turtles, string of hearts are doing really well in here. Really gorgeous color. We do have an air plant. This one's a Xerographica, which is actually the most drought tolerant of air plants, or one of the more drought tolerant ones, thankfully. We've got a fern that just loves its life in here. It's doesn't say what kind of fern. Oh, there we go. A fluffy ruffle fern. And I actually didn't groom this one because I didn't see it had any dead leaves, but look at how great it's doing. I mean, a fern thriving on neglect. Have you ever heard of such a thing? It's awesome. Next shelf, again, we've got a random assortment, a variegated rubber tree right here. This cactus I've had for probably, let's see, Aaron and I have been married for 16 years, so I've probably had it for 14 years. Isn't that awesome? We've got a string of bananas, it looks like. Doesn't that look like a string of bananas? They're fat bananas, though. This is a ruby necklace right here. Let's see, I don't remember the Othana ruby necklace. This agave I've had for a number of years as well. There's an aloe. Is it Jaws? It's a really crazy looking aloe back there. String of Dolphins was looking super rough, so I cut her back. We'll see what happens. We got Sempervivum, a random assortment of cacti, and then there's our Swiss cheese plant right there, which I propped up so it wouldn't keep falling over. And then the last shelf over here on this wall, we've got spider plants. We've got another fern. I've had this Boston fern for like 3 years. Boston ferns typically just hate it here because we're so dry. And this one has had to be cut back all the way, but it's doing real well in here. Here are some of the violet babies. We did these cuttings this last spring. This tray is a little bit more sad, but there's still growth. They were so dry, like bone dry. So I think they'll be a lot happier now. And there's a couple with like tiny little growth, tiny little leaves, and a couple of cacti that I repotted, cacti and a Haworthia. But these violets are all looking really good. Happy with those. Okay, right over here we have a ZZ plant, cacti that I've had probably 14 years as well, an old man cactus. I need to get it in a different pot. It's been in this Proven Winners pot for a while. I've used this actually in mixed arrangements, and then I take it out and repot it, and then I'll use it again. And they started out really small, and now they have grown quite a lot. And a couple of, are these split leaf philodendrons right here? Is that right? Pfft, I should probably know. I've got 2 of them, and those need some support big time as well and need to be repotted. And then we've got a Dracaena right there. And then over on this side, we've got just more philodendron, right? Is that philodendron or pothos? I don't know. And then over here, we have the zigzag cactus, some other succulents that I just use in mixed arrangements. There's another fern that we've cut back and it's growing. We've got some angel wings, senecio. Anyway, I'm just super happy with how everything condensed and how everything looks, honestly, given the fact that it's just fairly neglected in here. And now that, you know, the rush of fall and Christmas decorating, all of that's kind of done, we'll be able to turn our attention way more to these things. So they should come out of winter looking a lot better than they went into it. And you guys, that is it for today's video. Just like I said, some little projects we needed to get done both in the greenhouse and in here. We'll be back in the greenhouse here pretty soon to deal with those Rudbeckia and a few other things that I'd like to pot up so that they have room to grow and they stay healthy and that sort of thing. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's always a good feeling when I walk out of this room knowing everything is clean and everything is watered and all of that sort of business. Now I need to do that inside my house. I need to go back through all of my drawers and my cupboards. Last year, I kind of had a resolution to do at least one cupboard or closet or drawer or whatever, one a day until I was done. I got through a good portion of the house before it got too busy and I just couldn't dedicate the time. But I feel like I need to go do it again. Like if everything that I did last year, things just get to be a mess. I don't know if they do in your house or not, but it's just stuff that I don't have the time to keep up on during the growing season. It just kind of gets, you know, pushed to the side, and now we have time to focus on that a little bit more. Anyway, I hope I'm not alone in that. Thank you guys for watching. We will see you in the next video. Bye.